My children, when they found out I was doing the movie with a giant, and they said, a giant? You're working with a giant, Daddy? Really, Daddy? You're working with a giant? How big is a giant, Daddy? Is he as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? Is he as big as the doorway over there? Can he get through the door when he... I mean, literally, they could not stop talking about André. So by the time they came to England, they were so sort of quivering to see André. So I brought them to the set one day, and of course they're just like gaga, ready to go nuts. And André was in a very long, very large trailer. And we walk up the steps, and we turn the corner, and André gets up. And as soon as he gets up, my 3-year-old looked at him and went,
well, I'll try to make the story short. When I first I told my family that I was going to England to work on the movie. They couldn't come with me in the beginning. They came later. But when we were first going, they asked me what I was going to be doing. My little kids, my daughters were 3.5 and 2. And so I said, oh, I'm going to be working with a prince and a princess. I'm going to be the prince, and there's a princess, and then there's a pirate, and there was no reaction. And then I said, and there's a giant. A giant? We're going to be working with a giant, Daddy? How big's the giant? Is the giant as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? How big is he, Daddy? Well, that was the theme of my conversations with my children for the next month and a half, 2 months. Every time I'd get on the phone with them, I'd be in England. Hi, honey, it's Daddy. Hi, Daddy, where's the giant? Have you worked with the giant yet? Is he as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? So we'll jump to the time when the kids came to England. And of course they insisted. As soon as they got off the plane, hi, Daddy, where's the giant? So I arranged with André, who was the loveliest guy in the world, to have them come and visit the set. And he was working the day that I wasn't, so we get to the set, and André had a trailer that, what would you say, Carrie? It was like the size of the stage.
At least as big as this.
Yeah, as long as this, and about half as wide. And he was down at the end, and we're walking up the stairs, right? We're walking up the stairs, and I have one of my kids in my arm like this, and my ex-wife had the other. And we walk up the stairs, and we turn the corner, and André's down there. He's sitting, and he gets up. And my daughter, the 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old, goes, she wouldn't stop screaming. So immediately her sister started screaming. Well, 2 small children, so of course we take them away. And then take him to the car, and I said, I've got to go back and apologize to André. And I go in the trailer, and I walk in, and I said, André, please, I'm so sorry. And he said, no. They either come to me, or they run from me. And he was, that was André, in a capsule.
And he was such a sweet guy. Such a sweet guy.
Tell the story.
Oh, okay. Well, it's very sweet. My daughters at the time were 3.5 and 2. And I was going to England to make the movie, and when we first got there, we were working in Sheffield, and it was not a great place to be with a family on location. We were all in the same hotel, there was nothing to do. So they stayed at home, and I was explaining to them, 3.5 and 2-year-old, what I was going to do, and that they would come and visit me once we moved to London. And they said, oh, what are you going to be doing, Daddy? One of the girls said. And I said, oh, I'm going to be working with it's a movie about a princess. And there's a prince, and I'm playing a prince. And they were all, oh, okay. And then there's a giant. A giant? There's a giant in the movie, Daddy? How big is the giant? Is it as big as a car? Is it as big as a house? What's he look like? How big is his hand? How big is his... Well, that was the theme of the movie for them from that point forward. Every time I would call home, and I would say, hi, honey, it's Daddy. What are you doing? Hi, Daddy, have you worked with a giant yet? That was all I knew about. So we jumped from having worked in Sheffield, and we're now in London, and they're shooting the scene between with Indigo and André, in which André saves him, and the Brute Squad and all that, right? And so I said to André, do you mind if I bring the kids out to the set? Because they would love to see you. Of course, as soon as they arrive off the plane, hi, Daddy, where's the giant? So André said, yes, but of course. So we go, I take the kids to the set. I have one of the girls and somebody who helped us have another one. And André had a huge trailer. You remember his makeup trailer? It was almost as big as the stage, right? Because they couldn't get him into the makeup chair in the regular trailer, right? And so he's sitting at one end, And we enter from the other end, and we're walking up the stairway, and we turn the corner. I'm holding one of the girls, and somebody else is holding the other. And Andre's sitting, and he gets up. And my girls go. Screaming, and then the other one starts screaming. So now they're both screaming at the top of their lungs, and they wouldn't stop. So we had to take them away. So we take them back to the car, and I said, I gotta go talk to Andre. I have to apologize. So I go to Andre's trailer, and I walk in, and I say, Andre, please forgive me. I'm so sorry the way the girls reacted. And he said, it's okay, boss. He always called everybody boss. They either run to me or they run from me. That was Andre.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. Got no one right here in the center.
But his story is hilarious, if you want to.
Well, it's somewhat involved, but I'll try to make it a truncated version. When I was getting ready to go to make the movie, and my family weren't coming with me because we were on location and it wasn't a great place for little kids, so I was trying to explain to my 3.5 and a 2-year-old girls where I was going and what I was doing, and I said, "Oh, I'm making a movie, and they're playing in the play box, and they're doing this and that, and there's a princess in the movie. Nothing. They're playing in the play box. They're taking out things. And I play a prince, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. And there's a giant. And before I got the word giant out, I hear, Daddy, a giant in the movie? How big is the giant? As big as a car? Is he as big as a house? How really big is he? Could he pick you up and throw you down and crush you with his feet? Could he do that?" Well, from then on, nothing existed but Andre the Giant, right? Every time I talk to them on the phone, Daddy, where's Andre? Where's he? Is he as big as a house? Is he big as so and so forth? So they arrive in England, and the first thing out of their mouths is, Daddy, when are we going to see the giant? Okay? So I asked Andre on a day when we weren't working, I said, Andre, do you mind if I bring the kids out to see you? And he said, no, of course not, boss. So
He called everybody boss, which is hilarious because you had to talk to him like that.
And so I'm carrying the 3-year-old. My wife is carrying the 2-year-old, and he lived in a trailer that was as big as this stage because he couldn't fit in the regular trailer. And he was down at the end, and we walked in up the steps, and we turned the corner. And my daughter Stephanie took one look at him, and Andre was sitting. He sounds like that, and he got up. And she took one look at him. And her sister started screaming. So now they're both screaming at the top of their lungs, right? We leave immediately because I'm terribly embarrassed, and I go back in without them. And I said to Andre, please, I'm so sorry, I'm so embarrassed. And he said, boss, don't worry. They either run to me or they run from me. And that was Andre. He was, that kind of figure where people either gravitated to him or were horrified by him. Can you imagine living a life like that? But he lived it with dignity and with aplomb.
With total grace and a total sweetheart. I mean...
Yeah, he's a lovely man.
No, really.